While I was in high school, my family wasn't doing too well. My mom has extreme agoraphobia, meaning she gets panic attacks really easily. So she never learned how to drive a car, and she had to stay at home because it was the only place where she didn't get a panic attack. And I guess panic attacks are genetic or something because I actually get them all the time myself. It's really the scariest feeling in the world, but I just try to ignore it, and I don't tell anyone when I'm having one. So, you know, if you see me somewhere and I'm acting really weird or quiet or something, I might be having one, but you will never know. That was the worst evil laugh in the world.
Our family didn't own a console to play on because I played too much, but every time I was sick, my mom would rent a Super Nintendo for me. Unfortunately, I was sick a lot as a child. Quite a lot. Very sad. I was also very short as young, and I wasn't allowed to ride on the cool rides in the amusement park. But honestly, I was too scared to ride on them anyway. I was still always the happy kid who laughed and smiled a lot, but once the pubes hit, I became more quiet and introverted. I was doing great in school before, but now I lost interest in, well, everything. I lost friends, connection with family, I stopped being creative. It caused a lot of trouble for me, but despite all of it, I had some of my best memories playing video games. Approaching the end of my teenage years, I started to break out of my bubble a little bit. I took a final attempt to fix my grades in school, and I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't really an idiot.
Eventually, all that drinking and smoking and coal mining caught up to my dad. Something went wrong in his brain. They called it alcoholic seizures, though it pretty much was just like a stroke, and it left him like a stroke victim. He couldn't work anymore, so it was up to me and my mother to take care of him, and all he did was pretty much sit in his recliner and stare at the wall. He couldn't really communicate. He couldn't hear because he was deaf from working in the mines, and he couldn't talk because of his stutter, and that's really, really sad. Then my poor mother, who was already pretty sad and already pretty angry, got even sadder and got even angrier, and the bad stuff she did started happening more often, and the good stuff she did kind of disappeared. And as you can imagine, all this made me really, really sad. I didn't really have any friends at school either, which kind of sucked. The kids at school would call me fat or ugly or gross. 4 eyes, of course, because eventually I got glasses, and man, that was hard. And life just kind of went on like that for years. I was always pretty sad, and people were always kind of mean to me, and mom was always kind of crazy, and dad was very sick. You see, I was still pretty sad, and I was still pretty messed up, and I still got sick pretty often. And unfortunately for me, something went bad with my legs. I got a condition called lymphedema, and a very mean doctor tried to tell me that he was going to take that leg, but I wouldn't let him. So I was stuck in Fayetteville. I couldn't really walk very well, and I couldn't really exercise very much, but that was okay because I had some good friends, and we go out to eat all the time. But eating out all the time made me fatter, and being fatter made me sadder, and I get more depressed and more fat, till eventually I was fatter than I'd ever been. But that was just the beginning of health problems for my family because my dad passed. He died of cancer. And that made my mom really, really sad and really angry. And then we got some more bad news. She fell and broke her leg, and that leg would never heal. So she was unable to work. And if you thought she was crazy before, that pushed her over the edge. And all this bad luck, and all this poor health, and all this misfortune made me sadder and angrier than I had ever been. And I decided not to leave my house, and I didn't, for almost 7 years.
Drifting through life, so things were looking up all the way to going to college, and I was really excited to finally be able to go out on my own. But then, my father brought me some bad news. He put a piece of paper in front of me and just let me read it without saying anything. And I was a pretty smart kid, so I understood every word that it said, all the techno mumbo jumbo. But the main thing is that In basically big bold letters, it said cancer, and the really bad kind of cancer. So that was a really tough time for me because I kind of lost sight of what I was doing. Everything seemed kind of clear to me before, but right now everything was kind of just getting away from me. I thought I knew exactly what I wanted to do, which was make video games. I wanted to do it. My dad didn't agree with me, but I thought that that was what I was going to do. However, I started to realize that games might not work, so I kind of put that off the table and focused on going to engineering. I was originally in civil engineering, but moved into biomedical engineering because they had a medical school program. But that didn't work out either. I didn't want to do that, so I flip-flopped back to engineering again, and then I thought, hey, if I'm going to do what I want to do, I got to do games, and I really couldn't decide what I was going to do with my life. I was kind of at a crossroads and just frustrated. Then 1 year later, we were all home for summer, and my dad was getting pretty bad with cancer, and he wasn't himself anymore. But one morning, we were all woken up by my stepmom, Dee, screaming, and we went downstairs to see that my dad was dying. And the last words that he said to me were, "I love you so much." And I held my dad's hand as he died.